The loan officer asks one routine question. Any other outstanding debts either of you haven't mentioned? Chris Sutter goes still. Across the desk, so does his wife, Elena, at almost the exact same half-second, neither one looking at the other, both suddenly very interested in the paperwork in front of them, both doing the exact same quiet math behind two very different faces. Neither says a word for 3 full seconds. The loan officer, halfway through a stack of forms she processes every week, doesn't even notice the silence. She has no idea she just asked the one question this marriage had been quietly organized around not answering for over a year. I'm Ryan. This is Wealth Maps. And this is the story of two people who loved each other completely, and still couldn't bring themselves to say 4 words out loud, in either direction, I'm in trouble too. Go back 14 months, and Chris and Elena Sutter looked, by every visible measure, like a couple who had it figured out. Sunday mornings meant the same ritual for 6 years running. Chris made the coffee, Elena made the eggs, badly, on purpose, because the first time she'd tried it had been a genuine disaster and neither of them ever let her live it down. They'd read the paper on the same porch, argue affectionately about the crossword, and by 9 they'd usually be back in bed for another hour, no particular reason, just because they could. They'd been married 5 years. No kids yet, by choice, still saving for the house they talked about the way other people talk about a vacation they can already picture, a place with a real porch, big enough for the eggs ritual to survive whatever came next. Chris's secret started small, the way these things almost always do. A friend from college pitched him on a trading platform that was supposedly beating the market every month, screenshots of returns that looked, at a glance, entirely plausible. Chris put in $3,000 from a bonus, told himself he'd tell Elena once it proved out, once there was actually good news to bring home instead of a confession. He pictured the exact sentence he'd say, I've been quietly doubling our house fund, and liked that version of himself enough to keep waiting for it to become true. The platform lost money instead. Chris put in more, quietly, to try to recover it, the exact instinct that turns a small mistake into a real one. By month 6, he owed $11,000 on a credit card Elena didn't know existed, making the minimum payment from a separate account he'd opened just to keep things organized, a phrase he'd rehearsed in his head in case she ever asked, which she never did. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. 42% of American adults in committed relationships admit to some version of exactly this, a secret account, a hidden card, debt their partner has no idea about. Nearly a quarter have racked up debt their spouse doesn't know exists at all. It rarely starts as a lie. It starts as a plan to fix something quietly before anyone has to worry about it, and almost half the people who've done it will tell you, if you ask honestly, that they consider it just as serious a betrayal as an affair. They just never once thought of it that way while they were actually doing it. Elena had her own version of the same plan, running at the same time, entirely unaware of Chris's. Her younger sister's divorce had gone badly the same spring, 2 kids, a court date, a landlord who wouldn't wait for rent that was 3 weeks late already. Elena started covering a few bills here and there, $100, then $300, telling herself Chris would understand but not wanting to have the conversation about their savings plan while it was still, technically, manageable, still small enough to fix quietly before it became something they'd have to discuss at length. She opened a card in her own name for it, the kind of decision that takes 90 seconds online and changes the shape of a marriage without either person in it realizing the moment it happened. She told her sister not to mention it at family dinners. By month 8, Elena was carrying $9,000 of debt Chris didn't know about either, for reasons that had nothing to do with anything selfish and everything to do with not wanting to be the one who slowed down the house fund, not wanting to be the reason the porch got pushed back another year. Ask yourself, honestly, whether you'd have done anything differently in either seat. Picture it, the bonus that could either fix something quietly or become a confession, depending entirely on whether it worked. A sister on the phone, crying, 3 weeks behind on rent, and a savings account sitting right there. That's the uncomfortable part of this story. Neither Chris nor Elena was reckless. Neither one was lying about anything except the one thing that mattered most, and both of them would have told you, under oath, that they were protecting the marriage by staying quiet. But protecting a marriage from the truth and protecting it from each other turned out to be two very different things, and neither of them realized it yet. 3 times that year, one of them almost found out. Elena saw a credit card statement corner sticking out of Chris's jacket pocket doing laundry and didn't pull it out, telling herself it was rude to snoop, that whatever it was his business until he decided otherwise. Chris noticed a debit from an account he didn't recognize on their shared banking app and assumed, without asking, that Elena had finally treated herself to something nice, new shoes, a spa day, something she deserved, and said nothing because he didn't want her to feel guilty about it. Once, at her sister's birthday dinner, Elena's sister started to say something about the card and Elena talked over her so smoothly that Chris never registered it as anything but ordinary sister chatter. Neither noticed how strange it was that they both, independently, decided silence was the kinder option. Neither one had ever agreed to that rule out loud. They'd just both arrived at it, alone, in the same house, at almost exactly the same time. The worst part hadn't happened yet. It happened on a Tuesday in November, when the mail arrived and a collections letter addressed to Chris landed on the kitchen table before he got home from work. Elena saw it. She picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. She sat with it for 40 minutes before he walked in, running the 2 versions of the next 10 minutes over and over, confront him now, or say nothing, the way she'd been saying nothing about her own envelope hidden in a drawer upstairs the entire time. Her hands were shaking slightly by the time she heard his key in the door, and she genuinely couldn't have told you, in that moment, whether it was anger or recognition making them shake. She held up the letter when he walked in, still in his coat. "What is this?" Chris's face did something Elena had never seen it do before, not guilt exactly, more like relief arriving a full year too late to look like relief. He told her everything, faster than he thought he would, once the first sentence was finally out, the trading platform, the second card, the minimum payments, $11,000, all of it spilling out in under 2 minutes after 14 months of silence. And somewhere in the middle of his explanation, watching her face do something more complicated than anger, Elena realized she was going to have to say her own 4 words next, the one she'd rehearsed in the shower, in the car, at 2 in the morning, and never once said out loud. "I have to tell you something too." Chris sat down slowly at the kitchen table, still in his coat, and listened to $9,000 worth of a sister's rent, a landlord, a card he'd never seen a single statement from. Neither of them remembers, afterward, which confession actually came first. They just remember sitting at that same kitchen table until nearly 1 in the morning, 2 spreadsheets opened side by side for the first time in 14 months, $20,000 combined, more than either of them had guessed alone and somehow less frightening than either of them had guessed alone too. There was a strange, specific relief in it, one neither of them expected, the relief of finally being bad at the same thing together instead of secretly bad at it alone, of watching the other person's face fall the exact same way yours just had, an understanding, all at once, that you'd both spent a year protecting each other from something neither of you had actually needed protecting from. Just the truth, a little sooner. That relief is exactly why the refinance appointment 3 months later went the way it did. When the loan officer asked her routine question, Chris and Elena looked at each other first, actually looked, the way they hadn't quite managed to at that kitchen table 3 months earlier, before either one answered, and told her everything, together, out loud, for the first time in front of someone other than each other. Neither one flinched. Neither one let the other one answer a loan. They didn't get the loan that day. They got a referral instead, to a credit counselor who helped them build one combined plan instead of two hidden ones, consolidating both cards into a single payment they reviewed together every single Sunday now, right after the eggs, still bad on purpose. The counselor asked them, in that first meeting, when either of them had last actually looked at a full picture of their combined finances, together, in the same room. Neither could remember a single time in 5 years of marriage. The counselor didn't seem surprised. She told them something Chris repeated more than once in the months after. It's hard enough to hit a financial goal pulling in the same direction. It's nearly impossible pulling in opposite ones, and neither of you was ever actually pulling against the other. You were just both pulling alone, in the dark, at the exact same time. Financial secrecy rarely starts as betrayal. It starts as two people trying to protect each other from something, at the exact same time, in opposite directions, until the protecting itself becomes the thing that actually does the damage. Chris and Elena paid off the last of it 11 months later, a little at a time, the same patient way Chris used to try to fix his mistake alone, except this time with someone across the table instead of a screen that only he could see. They still keep separate accounts for small things, birthday gifts, the occasional surprise, but nothing over $200 stays unspoken past the following Sunday. That's the rule now. Not a suspicion. A promise, said out loud, checked every week over eggs that are still, 6 years later, made badly on purpose, the one thing neither of them had ever thought to actually say before the year it nearly cost them everything. So here's the real question this story leaves you with, the one worth sitting with longer than any number in it. Is there a version of that same silence sitting in your own house right now, being kept by someone who loves you, for the exact same reason you might be keeping one of your own?